everybody, tonight we are making a strawberry spinach salad. And this is a favorite of mine in the spring when strawberries and spinach are both prevalent. It's an unusual combination that you wouldn't necessarily think of that's actually quite lovely. And so I've been saving up the last of my spinach harvest for this recipe. This recipe comes from this really lovely cookbook called Simply in Season by Mary Beth Lind and Cathleen Hockman-Wert. And the whole cookbook is organized by season, and so green is spring, red is summer, kind of orange is fall, purple is winter, and then all season stuff is in the back. And honestly, I haven't used it that much, but I really do like this dressing recipe. A lot of spinach salad recipes are really, really sweet. And this has some sweetness to it, but it's not quite as sweet as a lot of the recipes are. I think we need some honey. Still gathering my ingredients. If you want your honey to be just a little bit more easy to pour, just microwave it for like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, depending on how much is in there. It will make your life a lot easier. Okay, so we're gonna do the dressing first here. I need a 1/4 cup of honey. I'm probably gonna cut that in half, so I'll probably just use 1/8 of a cup. That seems a little too much for me. A couple tablespoons of sesame seeds, some poppy seeds, vinegar, oil, a splash of Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of paprika, and salt and pepper to taste. A little Worcestershire out. Worcestershire. However many syllables you want to put in there. All right. So this is 1/8 of a cup instead of a 1/4 cup. So half of the honey that's called for. Great trick for getting honey to easily release from things like this is to just give it a little vegetable spray before you measure it, and it will pour right out. Makes life much easier. And you can see how that's basically sheeting off of the surface because of that oil that's in there. It's not perfect. Well, it would be perfect if I stood here forever, which I'm not gonna do. But it's much cleaner than it would be if I just didn't have anything in there. So that's a really good little trick. Okay, I need 2 tablespoons of sesame seeds. This is fun. These are actually homegrown sesame seeds. I saw some seed for them in a Asian grocery store, and I thought, well, that'd be fun to try to grow. And the reason that sesame seeds are not commonly grown in a home garden is because they continue to grow and bloom and ripen, and the bottom ones get ripe and burst open while the top ones are still blooming. And so it's not the easiest thing to harvest because they are not all ripe at once, which is what I learned when I grew it. But it's a really pretty little flower. It's very fun, and I actually have some more growing this year because I thought it was fun enough to do twice. So 2 tablespoons of sesame seeds, a tablespoon of poppy seeds. These are also homegrown. You can grow what's called bread seed poppy. I think Renee Gardens and several other places will have seed for that. It's a beautiful poppy. I'll throw a picture up on the screen to show you guys. And you can grow your own poppy seeds, which is fun. Let's see, what am I looking for here? This. So I need a 1/4 cup of vinegar. This calls for balsamic or apple cider. I'm gonna do apple cider with this. I think it goes well with the sweetness of the recipe. And I've also been doing a lot of stuff with balsamic, and so I thought it'd be nice to change it up a little bit. So 2/8 of a cups together is a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, 1/4 cup of oil. I also like this recipe because, again, it is a little less on the oily side. 1-to-1 ratio is kind of unusual for a salad dressing. Usually it's 3 or 4 times as much oil as vinegar. but because of the sweetness in there, it's going to cut the acidity of the vinegar and just have it be very tasty without being a ton of oil. Eighth of a teaspoon of Worcestershire. I'm just going to put a couple drops in there. Quarter teaspoon paprika, so just a tiny amount. This is homegrown paprika as well. Did you know that paprika is just a type of pepper? It's actually a whole bunch of different types of pepper. Honestly, you can make paprika out of any sweet pepper or any spicy pepper if you want to. There are certain varieties that are known for that, but you can turn any pepper into your own paprika if you want. But it's a really fun thing to grow, and I've grown it for years. I think that's everything. Salt and pepper to taste. A good-sized pinch of kosher salt and a couple of grinds of fresh black pepper. We'll give this a good whisk. There's nothing in here. Well, the honey is a mild emulsifier. I find that things with honey will stay mixed a little bit. I notice it mostly, I make homemade granola, and I notice the oil and the honey mixed together before you put it on the granola to bake it. Stays pretty well mixed. So the honey is a little bit of an emulsifier, but mostly we're going to need to stir this right before we dress the salad because it's not going to stay very well mixed. Making sure that honey is well dissolved down there in the bottom, although it's going to sit, so it'll be okay. Let's get a... Very nice. Not sure why traditional spinach salads often are so sweet. It just seems really unnecessary to me that they be that sweet. A little bit is fine, but it doesn't need to taste like candy. I'm just going to toast a few sunflower seeds to go on this. You can put any kind of nut on this recipe you want or on the salad. I've been doing a lot of pecans and walnuts lately, so I'm just gonna change it up a bit. It gives sesame seeds as one of the options, so I think I'm just gonna do a little bit of that. And then we need to wash some strawberries. Our strawberries are just starting to come into season here. And the tiny little harvest that I got out in my garden is done already, although I have some other strawberries that aren't started yet. And I haven't had a chance to get out and buy a flat of strawberries from a local farm. So I admit these are California strawberries, but they are also organic. Strawberries are one of the fruits and vegetables that always shows up on the biggest pesticide contamination list. They are pretty heavily sprayed, and because of the fact that they're berries and they're eaten raw, a lot of times it's not easy to wash that off or cook it out. You're consuming it. So just be aware that they might not last quite as long, they might not look quite as good in the store, but it might be worth buying organic strawberries in the store if you're buying strawberries in the store. It's interesting, Environmental Working Group puts out a list, I'll put a link to it below, every year called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, and it is taking the actual U.S. government's data on pesticide testing, where they test for pesticide residue in produce every year. And that's all open to Freedom of Information Act requests from the public. And so the Environmental Working Group gets a copy of that every year and then publishes a list that they call the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, that is the most contaminated and the least contaminated fruits and vegetables on that list. And they're pretty consistent year to year in terms of what shows up on top, but strawberries are definitely one of those things that is highly has a lot of pesticide residue on it. So, and then there's things like onions that just don't. It's very unusual for onions or sweet potatoes, for instance, to have a lot of pesticide residue. Those are on the other list, the Clean 15 list. And so if you're on a budget and you only have a certain amount of money to spend on organics, it helps to look at that list when you make those decisions, because you can decide to buy organic on the things that tend to be more contaminated and not bother to buy organic on the things that are less contaminated. Avocados are often on the list of low pesticide residue. So yeah, for years when I was on a pretty tight budget, that really helped me make decisions about what to spend my hard-earned money on if I was buying organic or not. I'm just gonna give these a quick split so that they're, and we probably won't put all of these on the salad, but I'm gonna go ahead and process them all and we'll eat the rest for dessert or something else. I've been eating a lot of strawberries on my cereal in the morning. I eat a lot of oatmeal, and this time of year is always so nice to have fresh strawberries on my oatmeal. If you hear my voice a little bit gravelly, I am getting over COVID. It's been an interesting journey. We did a trip to Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago to see Sting in concert, because I had always wanted to see him, and I decided that he was going to get old and die and I wasn't ever going to have had a chance. So we went to Vegas and we saw him, and it was amazing. He's 70 and it was still incredible. But not surprisingly, given all that travel and all of those people, and the fact that pretty much everybody has given up wearing masks at this point, we came home and I got sick. So it's been interesting after 2+ years of trying to avoid getting it to finally have it. Colds and flu tend to settle in my lungs more than most people. And so I actually talked to my doctor and got him to give me a prescription to the antiviral medicine to take, just because I could feel it settling into my lungs. And so I did a 5-day course of that. We'll see if I get a rebound infection. It's one of the things that sometimes people have with that particular antiviral. But for me, it was worth it to fight it off. And honestly, I felt about 50% better within 3 hours of taking my first dose. I really think it made a huge difference in terms of knocking the virus back. And I didn't start taking it until the 3rd day, and so my body had enough time to make antibodies that I will not have a rebound infection. That's the little happy little dream. We'll see what happens. All right, one other thing I need to chop up here. I'm gonna throw some chicken on this. This is just leftover grilled chicken from a couple of nights ago, and it's actually from our own birds. We raised meat birds for the first time ever this spring and butchered them. And this is one of those homegrown chickens, which was really fun. I've raised egg birds forever and butchered them on occasion when they were old and not laying well anymore. But those are great for stew. They're not really good for putting on the grill. The meat is really, really tough. And so to actually have really tender chicken from my own birds is really quite the treat. And they went from 1-day-old birds to ready to butcher in 8 weeks, which is just insane. And so 1-day-old chicks to the biggest ones dressed out at over 6 pounds. Most of them were over 5 in an 8-week time period. They ate about 350 pounds worth of food. So they grow fast, they eat a lot, and then they're done. And we did a 12-hour on, 12-hour off feeding regimen once they were 3 weeks old. So they only had access to food for 12 hours out of every 24. And the theory there is that it slows them down enough that they don't have all of the problems that you often hear about with meat birds, where they grow so fast that their legs break, or they grow so fast that they have heart attacks. We started out with 25 birds, and we had one that died almost immediately. It got wet in the water container and then got cold and just like committed suicide. It was dead within 3 or 4 hours of bringing it home. And then we had one that we lost the week before we butchered. So one that checked herself out a little bit early, but we got 23 birds out of 25. So we did pretty good. I have a chicken plucker, and that was the big motivation for actually getting meat birds. Is I bought a chicken plucker for the first time. And if you've ever hand plucked chickens, you know what a chore that is. And that was why I'd never done meat birds before, because it just takes so much work. You know, I think I'm gonna do a bigger plate on these. Sorry for all the noise. Okay. I have a little bit of other greens. You don't have to do this with spinach. It's kind of the tradition, but obviously any lovely spring greens will work, and I am going to throw a little bit of extra on here. This is almost the last of my lettuce from this year. It's starting to get too hot, and so we did a nice spring crop of lettuce, and I still have a couple of heads of romaine in the fridge, but this is the tail end of the rest of it. I like a big salad. Somebody described lettuce to me as, or actually really most vegetables, as just water balloons with vitamins in them. And there's just almost no calories. Like 2 cups of lettuce is less than 100 calories. And so it's healthy, it's filling, it's full of nutrition, and I just don't see any reason to eat small salads. So I love a big dinner salad. This spinach has already been cleaned and washed. You guys have seen that process. And I really like to, when I grow spinach, I like to save the small leaves that are more in the center of the plant for salads and things like this. And then the big old leaves, I usually blanch and either put them in a dish where they're cooked, or I just blanch and freeze them for use later in the season. So you get two meals for the price of one, because you get the small tender stuff for the salads. And that way I'm not fiddling around trying to grow baby spinach, because I got better things to do than doing cut and come again spinach. This is that lovely heirloom variety from Baker Creek that is so thin. So it's very, very tender, versus this, which is a more traditional spinach leaf. So I got a couple different kinds going on there. Turn the light on so you can see a little better. And honestly, this is gonna be very simple. We eat a lot of, this is a very go-to dinner for us. We eat a lot of basic dinner salads. And I will, I'm sure, do many videos on this over the course of the year. My go-to is a big pile of greens, often some kind of protein, although not always. Chicken is my favorite, but grilled steak is great. Grilled fish is good. Shrimp is good. Tofu is good. Lots of options there. And then some kind of nut. I love pecans. My favorite combination is pecans and balsamic vinegar, but any kind of nut, and then some kind of cheese, and often a fruit. So this is strawberry, but I will often do apples or pears in the fall. Even peaches are great. So yeah, don't be shy about putting fruit on your salads. It's a really lovely flavor contrast. What am I looking for here? I want, my nut of choice today is toasted sunflower seeds. And then I'm gonna Once again, you guys have seen me cook with feta. I think practically every recipe I've done this year. A little bit of brined feta, always a favorite. I do have other cheeses, I promise, but I do love a good feta. All right, I'm just gonna set that there and crumble this up in here. The contrast of that salty creaminess with the dressing and with the fruit is just so good. But a Parmesan would be lovely here. A Manchego, which is a Spanish cheese that's kind of a hard cheese, would be great here. Even a good white cheddar would be really good here, like an aged cheddar. So lots of cheese options. Re-stir our dressing up. It's always kind of nice to give, especially something with sesame seeds or poppy seeds, it's nice to give everything a chance to kind of soak. And this would be even better if I let it sit for a day, but I'm hungry, I'm not going to do that. But getting it mixed up, and then I'm just going to do this. Make sure I get some from the bottom and some from the top in case it's not staying mixed. I'm going to go just a little bit more there. All right. We'll have some extra for other salads. So there you have it. Strawberry spinach salad with a poppy seed sesame seed dressing. Healthy. It's going to cure me of all my ills. Really lovely spring or early summer salad. Enjoy.